Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Spirit and Soul podcast. Today, we're going deep into some self-reflection slash soul work here because there is something that is just so on my heart that I want to talk to you about. And it was really born out of I was just featured in in CEO Official magazine, and it was such an incredible honor and so beautiful, and really a moment of almost like feeling surreal. And why did it feel surreal, right? Because I've been working so hard, honestly, and really keeping focused on what is important to me, which is my community, which is helping people truly find their way in life, find their way from the from like their soul, like living from your soul and like waking up to that and really creating a life you want to see. Like that is truly my my thing in life. Like that is what I want for everybody. And when I'm looking at this magazine, I actually I'm not going to lie, I actually opened it up and then I had to shut it down. Like I almost like couldn't look at the picture for a moment because it felt like a manifestation come true. And I always tell you, right, that sometimes it takes time for your manifestations to, like, when they happen, like it takes your body time to like catch up to it. And that's exactly what happened to me. I really needed a minute, and I opened it back up again, and I was just like, wow, like I had to like steady myself and just open that up and kind of like really look back at where I came from. And my beautiful sister Gina posted a reel today for me. She does my social media and Spirit and Soul along with Carrie, and they, did a reel of like reading the article, like going through the article. And in it, because my sister has been on this journey with me since day one, she wrote about my starting, like where I started to where I am now, and like the different iterations. And I know that I've talked to her about this 1 million times, and she really beautifully, eloquently wrote about my journey and the journey like she's seen also from my perspective. And I want to talk to you about that because that it's very easy to look at somebody and to see the things that they might have now and say like, oh, it must be so easy, or oh, they're just so lucky. And the fact is that this was not luck, and that, I mean, maybe some luck, of course. I love a little good luck story. Right place, right time, all the different things. Yes, I'm going to claim all that. However, it wasn't just, oh, it just happened, right? Like this was me putting in the work. This was me learning many different parts of myself and growing. And this an entrepreneurial journey. I think that the entrepreneurial journey is truly, if you let it be, a spiritual journey as well. And I started my entrepreneurial journey at the same time, like when I really look at it and I tell the story about, my boss and how we had an altercation, and I was like literally like having a panic attack in my office because that moment is not about my boss, even though it is, right? And it's about me, and it's about finally hearing the calling of my soul. It's finally hearing the knocking, and that your soul is always knocking. It's always trying to be heard by you, but we don't make space for it. And then even when we do hear it, we kind of like don't listen to it. And I'm going to say that, and I did not do this perfectly. And I'm going to be very honest in that. And I had to learn along the way. And this wouldn't be a journey, a spiritual journey, if it was done perfectly along the way. But a lot of the times did listen to my soul, and I had faith because it was almost like I wasn't allowing my life to go on like that anymore. I wasn't allowing a corporate life anymore because that was making me so unhappy that my unhappiness really drove the bus here and made me say, like, I will not stop. And that's what I did, right? Like, there were so many things. I mean, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I had an infant and a toddler. Okay. I was married. I had 2 kids, and they were very, very little, still at the point of getting up in the middle of the night, and all of it. And I was working full time, and I made space for me. I made space not just for me, but for my happiness, because I could have gone on with that life. And you know what? Probably as hard as it was, it probably would have been very easy. No brainer style stuff. Okay. I would have been stressed out with work as I was. I would have been unhappy, but I wouldn't have thought about myself, honestly. And if I was happy or any of those things or my own growth, I would have just done the things. And I realized that it was the biggest gift, the biggest gift ever that my boss gave to me was that moment, was that. And I'm so grateful. And I talk about this all the time, that I am so grateful for him for many, many different things. Okay. But grateful for that moment, because that moment, I allowed it to change my life for the better. I could have told myself a story in that moment about my boss, and I'm going to have to do this forever and blah, blah, blah. And I told myself a new story, and I created that new life. And in that moment, I chose that new life. And that is what shifted for me. That is what shifted my timeline. It was the choice, because there are so many times that we have a choice in life and we think we don't. We always have a choice. Always. And sometimes you're like, you'll hear yourself say the words, I don't have a choice. I don't want to have a choice. You have a choice. It's just that the one that you want feels difficult. And then you don't want to rock the boat, or you don't want to do something that hurts anybody. And then so you will hurt yourself over somebody else. And I was not doing that anymore. I was not choosing that easy road. And that would have been the easy road. This was definitely way more challenging. I'm not going to lie. Challenging on every level, every single level. This life that I chose was more challenging. But I chose it because I would rather have the soul led life that was filled with a bit more challenge and, let's be real, adventure, than live a life that wasn't in alignment with me anymore. And what that meant for me was to start getting out of my comfort zone. It also meant that I needed to have faith. And coming from somebody that didn't have, like, I didn't grow up really with like religion so much. I mean, we believed, like, my mom just believed in God. We did grow up Catholic traditions, I guess you could say, but never really at home in a church. So like, I just had faith in a higher power, and that higher power didn't have to be God, or it didn't have, it just was. And I think that at the end of the day, if I really were to lean into it, while I do believe in higher power and universe, and you take what resonates, leave what doesn't, um, I think that higher power the whole time was my higher self. Really. I mean, I know the universe and my angels and everybody, all my whole spiritual team was leading the way. I know that now. But I think the driving force behind it all was that I saw a higher version of what my life could be. And where did I see that? I saw that first of all, I knew in that moment, I had to believe that more was available to me. That was number one. I had to believe that more was waiting for me to choose it. And that choice was not coming from living a life that I did not feel aligned with, that I was crying when I was leaving every day, that job. That was not it. So, in choosing a different life, I had to also allow myself to surrender to parts of it. And let me tell you something, I did not surrender perfectly. I think I surrendered relatively easily, though, because I didn't have a choice. I did not know how to do anything that I was setting out to do. So that day, I started a food blog. I did not even waste 1 second in choosing a name. Whatever came to me first is what I went with. I created a website that I had no idea how to create. I took the worst, when I say the worst, food photos ever in the history of food photos. I did that and I put them out there. And you know what? I put them out there proudly. And when I look back at them now, I'm like, ooh, girl, what were we doing? But I had to learn and I had to grow and I had to learn about search engine optimization and I had to learn about the rule of thirds in photos and I had to learn about what created a good food blog. And I poured myself into this. And I'm going to say this to you. I poured myself into it knowing that it wasn't the end game. I will always remember my dad saying to me, like, this is like really cool what you're doing, but you're going to be a food blogger? Is that what you want to do? And I'm like, no, I think it's just a stepping stone to something else. And what that is, I don't know yet, but I'm going to just go with it, you know? And for other people, food blogging, it blows up for them. I have many mentors that it's their full-time thing and they are amazing. But for me, I knew that that wasn't going to be the end game, that I was being led elsewhere. I just didn't know where. But again, I needed full faith. And then I also had to make a commitment to myself that when the time came and I knew I needed to pivot, that I would let it all go. And that's exactly what I did. So when I say like I committed fully, I committed fully. Like I was going to conferences and I was taking all the food photography courses from some of the best, like Sarah Fennell from Broma Bakery and Sam Adler, who's unbelievable, like just two powerhouses in the food photography, food blogging space and more now. They're all doing more. And I learned so much from them, grew so much. I grew my food blog into something that was great. Like I was working with big brands like Driscoll's and Sunkist and Cento and all these places. And I started doing things, locally, started taking food photography at some of my favorite restaurants. And it was so much fun and so beautiful, so great. And then just as I started to feel really good in what I was doing and getting a stride and feeling very confident in what I was doing, I knew that it was time, that this part of my journey had run its course, because while I was also food blogging and while I was learning how to grow a business over a few years, I also was on that spiritual journey. And I was being led then into coaching, right? So in the background, while I was doing this food blogging, I was also doing a little spiritual coaching, and I started with just like one of my cousins, Tracy, and I started with my sister, Gina. And we had this like Sunday meetup, and we would go like on a phone call and we would just talk about ways to grow our business and things that I was learning, because I always had a business coach, still do to this day. I just think that if you are in a coaching space, you are a coach, and you don't have a coach, I think that's I'm not going to lie, I think it's a little hypocritical. And my coach Dan says the same thing, that you do always need, if you're not getting a coach. How do you, and you're coaching, you're kind of saying you're not believing in it. And we always need to grow. We always have blind spots, right? So like I've always had a coach, and that all those things that I was learning and that I was seeing results with, I would share with them, and we would come up with ideas and we would do things together. And it was such a fun time. Like it was so great. And in the end, I was like, well, wait a second. I'm like, basically what I'm doing is, without realizing it, because it was more like, I guess, mastermindish at first, I was coaching. So I started to do that. And I started offering free classes as I was still doing the food blogging. I started offering these free things just to create a community of people that maybe wanted to be guided and led to, and like building their own business or creating their own life, like people that were in my shoes, but maybe like where I was a few years back. And I started to do that. And in doing that, I started to realize that like I loved it. Like I loved teaching, I loved coaching, I loved giving the information to people so that they could grow their business, that they could change their life. And then suddenly, at the same time, because I knew I was doing it from a different place, I was doing it from a place of spirituality and allowing yourself to be guided by your soul. It wasn't just business, it was all of it mixed together, like what feels good for you and how to bring these things together. And this then led me to now this crossroads where one thing was taking off, like the spiritual teachings, like even my spiritual teachings started taking off, and I was running goddess circles and all of these different things. This is all during COVID, right? So like they were virtual circles and they were so beautiful. And I always admired the goddess space who I ended up learning so much from her about moon circles, but I was running my own goddess circles before that. And like, I just remember looking and being like, wow, the community is like just so beautiful. And I love to like come together in this way. And I started doing all these things, and all of this started to evolve. And I had to choose. And I chose the next iteration of myself, which was that spiritual teacher. And I let go of the food blog with ease. And oh my goodness, my family was like, no, because they wanted all the, recipes and everything still. But I had to let it go. And once I did that, it allowed me to step into the next level of myself as the spiritual teacher, as this coach. And I did that, and I got my first clients, and I started to see people's businesses changing and their lives changing. And as they tap more into their spirituality, how they were growing and growing out of toxic relationships and growing out of, like getting unstuck. And it was lighting me up. And I knew that this was like the way, right? And I started to see then the life and those snippets that I was seeing before, I started to see them coming together a bit more, and knowing that like this was my true calling. And as I then let that unfold even more, I realized that I needed a space, and I needed to be able to bring people together in different ways. And I allowed myself to be guided there. And then when it was time to leave corporate America, I also allowed myself to be guided in that, right? So getting to a point where you're on, where you're in CEO Official Magazine, or you're in these places where people are recognizing you for what you're doing. This is like, it's a dream come true, right? It's seeing that every single pivot, every single hardship, right? Because along the way, there was many failures, and there were things that didn't do so well. And there were things that, it felt like a setback. And there were people in my life that came and went, and there were people that were there for a little bit of time and then had to go. And I had to be every step of the way a willing participant in the journey, and like this, and being surrendered in it, while also honoring all of those people and honoring all of those experiences. So like honoring my food blogging time, honoring the person that I was in that, honoring every single person that I've come across, whether they were a client, a customer, part of the journey in some way. I'm honoring every single relationship and everything along the way because it got me here. And I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for the hardships. I'm grateful for the failures. I'm grateful for, the things like the lower vibration things that have happened as well that continue to keep me growing. And it shows that as you surrender to the flow of life and as you surrender to your soul, to the mission, the more you get to know what is one of the reasons that you are here? Because I am a believer that we have multiple reasons that we are here, multiple soul purposes. The more that you can allow yourself to surrender to it and be guided, the more, and also doing the healing work that comes with this, right? Like the healing work was so important. Like, yes, you need to learn to manifest and all the things. And I learned how to do that in the most incredible ways. But the healing work is the necessary piece. It is the necessary piece to get to where you want to go, because you can't align with those things if you're not doing the healing. So I'm so grateful that I learned how to do this healing work, that people were put in my life, like Christina, that's here at Spirit and Soul, who ended up was my neighbor, my across the street neighbor, and now my best friend. And and that she was teaching me along the way and guiding me, and continues to, as well as we do for each other. And it's amazing when you start to look back at the journey and really realize that every single thing was working for you the whole time. Everything was working for you the whole time. And all of the hardships and the ups and the downs and the pivoting and the, investing in this and trying this and doing that and being led and feeling confused, and all of it leads you, it leads you exactly where you need to be. And you have to allow it, right? Like allowing yourself to grow with it. And I think that we can so easily get caught up in the egoic pieces of it, right? We can get caught up in the not enoughness. We can get caught up in the pieces of like hustle, right? Like I just have to hustle, hustle, hustle. We could get caught up in the pieces of feeling like, not good enough, limiting beliefs, our fears, our doubts. We can come across people in our lives that hurt us, right? And then we can look at each one though and say, but I grew from those things, right? And we can easily get caught up in the ego of it and allow ourselves to spiral downward with it and let the ego get hurt by the person, let the ego get hurt by those, let the ego maybe keep you down in your limiting beliefs, in your fears and in your doubts. Or you can witness it all. Witness every single piece of it and give gratitude for them, even though sometimes they really suck. Give gratitude for it, because at the end of the day, it's going to make you a better person if you allow it. You have a choice. You can always let things make you a bitter person, or you can make them let you be a better person. That's your choice. And I refuse to let any of these things make me become a bitter person. And because of that, it made me a better person, and it made me aligned with these bigger opportunities that are now coming my way. And along the way, every step along the way, I needed faith in the vision that I saw, that I knew didn't come from me, that came from outside of me. It came from something bigger than me, and having faith in that and never giving up on it. So my hope for you is that you see this journey right here and you're watching it unfold. If you've been with me from the beginning, you've seen the iterations of me. You've seen how I've grown and that I'm a different person today than when I started. And I'm so happy and grateful for that. And if you're on your journey, and maybe you weren't with me from the beginning, maybe you're just tuning in now for the first time. And I want you to understand that what you see here is my middle. And you can never, ever, ever, ever compare your beginning to anybody else's middle, ever. Don't do that. We look around and we see other people doing the things that we want, and I want you to make that an inspiration, not a comparison. Okay. Because you're looking at you're just getting started. And I used to do this all the time. All the time. I would look at people and be like, okay, they have what I want. How come I'm not there? My pictures don't look like that. My photos don't look anything like that. And at the end of the day, I was comparing myself. And actually, that comparison was, bringing me down. And I couldn't allow that anymore. So I had to look at it more as inspiration. So I want you to do that. I want you to start looking at the people that have the things you want as inspiration and also as proof, social proof that whatever you want is available to you. Somebody has already done it. And if they can do it, why not you? Okay. So if you're in the middle of your journey, if you're just getting started on your journey and you're feeling like, where the hell is this going? What's happening here? I'm just doing all these things and I'm not seeing the results. I was actually just on a podcast just before this, actually. And the community podcast with Christina Barthold. And we were talking about how, when you show up for like the first time for things, let's say like on an Instagram live, we do live sales every Monday night, that maybe you have just like a couple of people that are on with you. And how does that make somebody feel? And how can you shift that if you're feeling like it wasn't a lot of people and all of this? And she was asking me about that. And I just said that I never had faith. I always had faith. I never looked at the numbers. I didn't look at the number of people. I always spoke to the 5 people that were on as if I was talking to 50. And that didn't matter for me. And I think it didn't matter because I always held the vision. I knew what the end game would be. And I want you to find the faith in that as well, in knowing that your dreams are seriously right on the other side of you truly believing that they exist, and then not stopping until you get there and letting go along the way. Like, I had dreams for my food blog. I had dreams for it. I was like, I'm dreaming about this many page views, and I'm dreaming that I'll be on this blah, 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 and I'll be on this. And I had dreams and some of those things came true and some of those things didn't. Thankfully, for the better, they didn't, because who knows what road I would be on if it like did blow up, right? Maybe I would be a food blogger today, but that wasn't my journey. That wasn't for me. So I want you to understand that you dream big for all the things you're doing. And I dreamed big, even knowing that it was a stepping stone to something else. So I want you to do that. Like, give it your all while you're in it. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Let go of that control. Be a willing participant in your journey, and stop looking at everybody else and saying, I should be here, I should be there, this should be happening, and just go. Stop looking at everyone else and just do you. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if somebody's doing better than you. It doesn't matter if they're doing, in quotes, worse than you, even in quotes for better than you. It doesn't matter. What matters is you're going, because they can't do it like you do it. End of story. Okay. So keep going, keep pushing forward, and know that your dreams are on the other side of you doing that work and getting there. I fully, fully believe in you. I fully believe that you are meant to bring your dreams and your goals to life. So even if you have nobody, if you feel like you have nobody in your life that supports you or understands you, I'm going to tell you, you're wrong. You have one person right here, right now, that believes in you and has faith in you. And I'm going to say, I'm just speaking for myself here, but you have a whole group of people that believe in you. You want to know who those people are? They're everybody here at Spirit and Soul. We are cheering you on. Okay. So let's bring those dreams to life. And I hope that my story inspires you to continue moving forward, to continue to create that space in your life for dreams, for your dreams, for the things that you want in your life to happen. Keep creating that space because you're the only person that can bring your dreams to life. It's you, and that's it. Okay. All right, let's get it. I'll see you on the next episode of the Spirit and Soul podcast. And please make sure that you are tagging us in anything that you feel like we have inspired you with today. Please leave us a review, and we would very, very, very much appreciate that. All right, see you next time.